Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Shop Talks. Shop Talks is a function of the In Kitchen. Check out inkitchen.com for free information. Check out our YouTube channel. This talk and about over 200 others are up there, all free, due to our sponsors. Emerald, who puts on this show as well, Hirsch Solutions, Stalls, Los Angeles Apparel. It's all free for you because of them. And I am with my new friend here, Vlad, from Printing on Main Street, and we're going to talk a little bit about the good, bad, and ugly of rapid growth. So let's just hear a little bit about how this journey has gone so far for you. When did you start and where you're at now?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. So I got into this business, I guess, August of 2019. My first 3 months I was waiting on some equipment, so I didn't really get started till about October, and then February of the following year came around. So that was a very interesting time for all of us.
There wasn't a ski hill next door, right?
No. So I sat at home for a few weeks, and I was like, listen, whatever, I invested 20, 30 grand, whatever it was. And I was like, if it burns now, it burns now. It is what it is, right? Like, I guess I'll just figure it out. And kind of the phone just started ringing for random different things that I never even thought about, like lawn signs. You know, the kids were graduating and there was no graduations, and people were like, well, I need a lawn sign, could you do that? And I was like, yeah, sure. I had no idea. I didn't even know what a lawn sign was. So went to my friend Google, figured it out, found the company to print them for me, started printing lawn signs. From that it became, you know, birthday t-shirts and this and that, and we kind of grew. So I think in 2019, because I was brand new, I did about 3,500 in sales. Well, 2020 with the pandemic, I did about 320,000 in sales. So we kind of just grew really, really fast out of nowhere. And that was just maybe for the fact that I was so new. So it's not like I was screen printing for 20 years and now all of a sudden, I don't know, you know, I know what I do, and it's hard for me to pivot. I guess because I was so new, it was easy for me to pivot, right? And
well, so you know, you're more of a business-oriented person. I think that actually helps. The people I see that have a business mind do better than the people that are printers and try to do business. It's somehow, I think, easier to have the business sense and then decorate versus be a decorator and learn the business. I don't know why, but it seems to be go that way.
I think that in any business, you have to have some sort of sense of business. And if you're not good, like if you're a great screen printer, you're just absolutely amazing at your craft, right? Partner with somebody who's a really good business person, because that's a really, really important component. You know, I came from the events industry, the live events industry. I did that, you know, for 20 years or so. So when I decided to open up a print shop, I knew that I wanted to focus on the events industry. Now, it just happened that, you know, COVID and there was no events, so there was no nothing, so that didn't quite work out. But I think that really finding a niche that you can relate to, right, will help you succeed a lot quicker.
So, you know, we were talking a little bit before, and I just found it very interesting that you did put aside your decorating, and you set aside every day, even though you were growing, to look for more business. I think a lot of times it's very easy to get caught up in getting the work done and not plant any more seeds, and then once you kind of go through a run, you're done for. It seems like you kept up the sales for a while. You want to talk a little bit about how your mentality was at that point and what you were doing?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll take it a little bit back. I have zero printing experience before I started this business. I knew absolutely nothing, right? All I knew is that throughout the years, I've had customers that did events like trade shows and different things, and they were like, hey, could you get us t-shirts? Could you get us tote bags? So I would, you know, find it, go to 4Imprints or, you know, somewhere and put a little money on it for me and just get it done. So I knew that I probably can get customers, but it wasn't enough. So what I did was, when I started out, once the world started opening up a little bit, I would come to work at whatever 9 in the morning or something like that, stay till about noon, and then I would close the shop for an hour to an hour and a half, go grab lunch, and then hit like 10 or 20 businesses around there and just, introduce myself, walk into a pizzeria like, hey, can I make you a free t-shirt? They look at me like I have 5 heads. But at the end of the day, I was probably bringing a new order in almost once a day.
You were stopping at 10 to 20 places a day?
10, yeah, probably around 10. Sometimes more. The more it started working, the more places I went into.
I would say a lot of owners don't go to 10 or 20 places for new business in 6 months. So that's pretty damn good.
I'm not shy to approach anybody, right? Like, Marshall was
that's why we got you on here.
Right, Marshall was just sitting trying to eat his breakfast, and I came and started bothering him, So, like, for me, that's an easy thing. It might not be for everybody, right? But you have to build it. I didn't become this way, I don't think I was born this way, right? I think that I've just kind of over the years grew to be able to approach people and start a conversation.
So talk a little bit about like how you would cold call somebody. So, you're in the pizza shop. How would things turn around to that, or where else, what other kind of places would you stop, and what would you say to start with usually?
So cold calling for me is traumatic. I had a job in high school as a telemarketer, and I did that for like 3 weeks. 3 weeks or so, and after calling 300 people a day and having 299 of them say no, I never wanted to cold call anybody. But walking into a place, and for me it was like, all right, let's go grab some pizza, right? Walk into the pizzeria, hi, can I have 2 slices? Sure. Well, by the way, who makes your t-shirts? That's not so hard, right? Like there's a construction company office somewhere nearby, right? Walk in like, hey guys, my name is Vlad, I'm a local business owner. Can I make you guys a sample shirt, no strings attached? Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Just want to put it out there.
Did you just have a card, or did you have like a flyer or specials or any other kind of a thing to add to it, or did you just on personality?
So I did make a flyer. It was like 1,000 business cards, 12 t-shirts, it had some other stuff. But it was more about like the business cards and just creating that relationship, I think. Introducing myself.
And do you still do that, or did you get away from that after you got busier?
So I stopped doing it for a while, but even though I don't do it on a daily basis, I try to do it as much as I can, because I think at this point it's become like built into my everyday life. So wherever I go, I look for business, and it's really funny because now my wife, right, like randomly, she's like, hey, I went to grab lunch, the guy needs shirts. I'm like, wow, this is cool. And she's by far not a salesperson in any way, shape, or form. We're pretty opposite when it comes to that stuff.
Monkey see, monkey do.
I guess. She's brought in a few orders in the last few weeks. I've been very surprised.
All right, so that's kind of like a success story. Everything went smoothly, right?
Yeah. From a sales perspective, everything went smoothly. So back to what I said, I had zero idea what I was doing, right? So I knew that I could probably sell, which that worked out. But now what? Well, we started with a vinyl cutter and a heat press. I didn't know anything, so I went out to some company and bought $5,000 worth of blank t-shirts because I thought I needed to have all this stock. I probably still have some of those yellow sleeveless tank tops laying around. I don't know what I was thinking. But otherwise...
Don't let anyone tell you they don't have shirts like that laying around. Everybody makes some kind of mistake like that.
Correct. But so basically, I went on YouTube. I like to call it YouTube University. And I watched every single video that I could find on printing, right? So at that time, Stan's content, Lee Stewart's content, there was, a few other people doing it, but I think I spent a good month on YouTube and literally got to a point where my wife was like, can you get off your phone? Your face is in that phone from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, like, just put the phone down. But I was so into, like, I needed to learn this. So I did. Started with vinyl, Then we found 613. So we started doing transfers, and then I was like, well, I need to learn how to screen print. That was quite an interesting.
Interesting adventure. Let's say
Sure.
that.
I bought a used manual. We grew that. Now we have an auto, a manual. So little by little, I hired people. But the ugly part about it, right, because I didn't know, I made a lot of mistakes. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this, because I'm hoping that maybe some of you guys can learn from some of the mistakes that I made, so you don't have to make them and you don't have to spend that type of money for no reason. Like, don't go out and buy $5,000 worth of shirts when you're starting out. You don't need it.
So I did a talk for an hour once about mistakes I made. I could have gone on for many hours. Some guy said he watched it 12 times. Like, oh my God. Anyway, everybody does, and our in-kitchen thing that's the most watched is the misprint Mondays that we do. People got to know that they're not alone, right?
100%.
Everybody makes mistakes.
100%.
So what are some of the surprises you had? What else went wrong besides the 5,000 shirts?
So when I bought an auto, it was great. I went to a trade show. I saw Anatol. I said, I love this machine. It's electric. It makes it easy. And they said, okay, great. It'll be 8 weeks. And I'm like, perfect. This is awesome. So it happened to be that I was in a 1,500 square foot retail store, and I was looking for a warehouse, and the deli next door to us went out of business because of COVID. They just couldn't make it. And we have the same landlord, so I spoke to him and I said, hey, could I, open up some doorways and stuff and maybe take this store also? And he said, sure, yeah. So I rented that store. It had a really big back room that was like their kitchen. That's why I'm probably the only screen printing shop with a hood. I have a permanent exhaust system, courtesy of the deli.
And a fryer later. Okay.
But it took 8 months to get the press. Instead of 8 weeks, it took 8 months.
Say it louder, they can hear you over there.
I know.
All right. Anyway, all right. That's a beautiful surprise.
I still love them, but it was during COVID. It was still hard. Things were taking way longer. Yes, I blamed them at the time, but it wasn't necessarily their fault. But once the press came, they came down, they installed it. I've never had an issue. It's been smooth sailing, but it did cost me 6 months of renting the space that I didn't need at an extra $2,500 a month. So that's a little bit of a...
Ouch.
Yeah, a little bit. And then, we grew and we were like, we're doing, $20,000, $30,000 a year in transfers. Probably makes sense to get into this thing called DTF. Well, first it was DTG. We did that for a little bit. And then DTF came around and I was like, well, I want to do that. And that was in the beginning of DTF. And those of you that got into DTF in the beginning know what a disaster that was. Just like any new product, it takes time. But we worked through it. We got our, second machine. So everything has just been a very rough beginning.
Any other surprises? I mean, a lot of people run into other stuff when they do get the machine, like things they didn't expect, bigger screen room or needed more screens than they thought, or turns out they don't have enough power or something like that. Any of those kind of issues come up?
Yeah, so power was an issue. I didn't think about that our building only had a certain amount of power that came into it, and because of all my heavy equipment, we needed to upgrade it's 2 retail stores and 4 apartments upstairs. So we needed to upgrade basically the power that came into the building, which was a quite unexpected cost. But those are the types of mistakes because I just didn't know. And it wasn't like somebody said, hey, by the way, you need, how much power do you have in your building? Nobody asked me that question. They asked me if I have a 3-phase or a single phase, right?
They got over the power, actually.
No, of the machine, they did.
No, they should have asked you if you had enough, actually. And then another big one's doorways.
Yeah, so that was a big thing. So because we're just,
I think I'm still mad. I mean, I heard 30 years ago I bought a dryer. I thought it came in pieces. I didn't know. It was brand new. They delivered it on the front lawn of the building, and my plumber took it apart and carried it with his brother in.
Wow.
Luckily, he was like a giant defensive lineman kind of guy. But I had this car-sized thing on my front lawn, which I had no idea. I wasn't warned. If you
100%.
don't know, you don't know.
Right. So I knew that I only had a doorway to work with. So that was the other, reason why I went with Anatol, is because they offer something called a split base. That means that the base, which is the biggest part of the machine when it's delivered, could fit through a standard door. You turn it on its side and it fits right through the door. Well, the bottom part of the base is fine. It weighs about 200 pounds. The top part of the base weighs about 1,400 pounds. Good luck getting it through a door. 7 guys, 2 hours, we moved it 20 feet, we got it inside. It's fine.
I was injured. That's all that matters.
But I wish they would have said, hey, by the way, yes, you can get it through a door. It just weighs as much as a truck. Who knows? It's never going to be easy. If it was easy, there'd be 1 million people in this trade show, right? Because everybody would be doing it if it was easy. It's not easy. But if you're passionate about it, or in my case, if you're neck deep in it, at that point, right? What are you going to do now? I couldn't send it back. Right? It was uncrated, sitting outside on the sidewalk of my store. Like, a truck showed up. They're like, "You have a dock?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, I don't have a lift gate. How are we getting this thing off?"
Yeah.
We rented a high-low, whatever it's called, thing.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of unexpected things and maybe they were my fault that I didn't plan for them. Maybe I didn't ask the right questions. Asking the right questions is really important.
So, what got you through, the inevitable problems? What do you think carried the day in the end? Like, do you have a support system? You got a good accountant? You got a good banker? You got good friends? You got a good wife? You mentioned that. That's a good one.
I have a great wife.
That's a good one.
Right? We have 3 little kids, so
I'm still not lifting the 1,400 pounds.
No. But she does a lot, She's with them all the time, and because I'm working, right? Like, when you start a new business, you got to work, right? Like, yes, if you're doing this as a hobby part-time, you can do that, which is fine, too. And you can grow it from there. You don't have to go in full-time like I did.
Actually, let me ask you that, because it's kind of a point a lot of people miss. Did you discuss it with your wife before? Because that's kind of a big thing. Did she know what she was getting into, I guess?
So, did we discuss it? I was looking for a change, and that's why I decided, right? Because the events industry involved a lot of traveling, a lot of weekends, late nights, and the kids were just born at that time, so I knew that I wanted to be home more, that she would need me more. With twins, it's not easy.
I'm father of twins as well.
So, it was a lot going on. New twins, new business.
But you think she knew what you were getting into and there for her or not? A little bit anyway?
When we discussed it, I was like, you know what, honey, I want a business that's like, 9 to 6, Monday to Friday, so I can be home with you and, stuff like that. And
how'd that
wrong. I work from the minute I wake up, right? So the first thing I do is grab my cell phone and start seeing who messaged me or who emailed me, right? And then even at night, I'm on my phone, like, responding to emails, doing stuff, learning, reading, listening. So it's, even though I thought it was going to be a more like, standardized, business, it wasn't quite what I expected it to be. Which is fine. I love it. I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form.
So any other surprises sort of that you didn't expect getting into it that, came out of nowhere, if you will?
There's been a surprise with every piece of equipment that I've purchased. Other than that, when you get a lot of business, when you grow real fast, you need people to be able to, produce the stuff for you, right? So hiring people in today's, day and age is, at least for us in northern New Jersey, it's not easy. It's really, really not easy. So that was a challenge. But thank God I've put together a really good team. I think, I think I've hired
How many people you have at your place?
8 now. And then I think throughout my whole time, I think I've only hired like 11, right? So, people left, I hired somebody else, but really most of the people that I hired have stayed with me this whole time.
We'll call that a success.
Yeah. So
I've talked to a lot of people. That's a good ratio, I'd say. Which, you know what? Actually, that is the thing I wish people knew. You know what I mean? Like, people think they're a failure when every hire isn't perfect. What is a good ratio? It's certainly yours is within the range of pretty damn good from what I hear. So it's kind of a lonely place sometimes when you don't know that you're doing okay.
Yeah, I agree. Back to the time when I used to go out to go find business, well, I realized, now that a little bit of business was coming in, if I closed every day for 2 hours, let's say, who's going to make this stuff? So I hired my first hire. She was also a mom, and her kids were in school. So she's like, I can work from 10 to 2. And I was like, perfect. You come at 10, we'll stay together for a little bit. I'll leave at 11. I'll be back at 1. Excellent idea. Well, she's been with me since that day, right? And from starting out helping me weed vinyl and press T-shirts, she really took on a sales role herself without me even asking. And now she probably brings in, a 50% or more, maybe even, of our total.
It's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah.
The other funny thing is that we had a women's panel here yesterday, and they repeated some advice from the prior one, which was the main takeaway. They're like, hire moms. They know how to get things done with their arms full and doing 3 things at a time. And you have to make some accommodations like you did for the hours, but when you do, you get some of the best workers, and it's very easy to overlook that potential labor.
100%, but it filled a void that I needed, right? Like, I didn't want to have to close every day, and those were the 3 or 4 hours she could work, whatever it was, and it was like, perfect. So it just gave me more time instead of having to rush back because, God forbid, somebody walked up to the store and it was closed, kind of weird. So it gave me more time to go explore different areas. Like, I would go to the next town over, 10 minutes away, see some people there, but now I had kind of already maybe met, not everybody obviously, but went to a bunch of, I probably went to every pizzeria in a 5-mile radius. I found the best pizzerias in my area, that's for sure.
I was going to say your next job could be pizza, commentator. Anything else? Maybe let's see if there's any questions.
Let's talk about the financial part of it for a second, which I think people don't like to talk about money, right? It's never a good conversation. Growing too fast, like, it's all great from the outside, right? Like, I grew this business in 4 years from 0 to about $1 million, a little bit under. Last year we did like $998,000 in sales, and I only found this out after my accountant did it. I was like, couldn't you tell me this before? I would have like sold something for $2,000, to try to hit $1 million. But
one more pizza parlor, you would have had it.
I actually don't have that many pizza customers. I don't. I think we have like 2 pizzerias only. But that is a good niche, right? Because every pizzeria has their own shirts, so it's not a bad one. I really started to kind of think about, if we could talk about sales first, and then I'll go back to that. So walk in like, hey, Jim, nice to meet you. Who makes your shirts? And you're like, I use a guy random. I'm like, oh, I would love to make you a sample shirt, right? Just as a gift from me to you. And then I give it to Jim, and Jim's like, wow, this is a nice shirt. Can I order some? I'm like, sure. How many do you need? 10. Right, because he's got like 30 people in there. How many shirts do you need? 12, 15, 20, whatever. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a long ride, right? If I'm selling 12 to 15 shirts, what do I do? Well, Jim, who makes your pizza boxes? Do you do menus? And he's like, oh, yeah, I could really use some new menus. And he's like, you're going to design it for me? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll design it for you. Remember, I have no idea. I've never printed a menu. I don't know where to go, and I for sure don't know how to design menus. I have at that time, some basic Photoshop skills. That was about it.
Uncle YouTube and Uncle...
Yeah, well, listen.
On Google, I guess.
I guess what I'm really good at, right, is figuring, I don't want to curse, but I'll say figuring stuff out. Keep it PG rated.
It's a special thing about here. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
All right.
When stuff hits the fan, I really figure it out. Because I don't want to fail. I really don't like failing. That to me, that's like the worst thing that can happen in my life is me failing in something that I'm doing. I'll do anything not to fail. And I think if you have that drive, like you're just willing to just keep going until something changes, you'll make it. So back to the financial stuff, like on the outside, everybody was like, wow, Vlad's really doing good. Like, wow, they're making money. Like everything is good. He keeps hiring people. He's buying new equipment. The lenders were like, hey, do you need another loan? And I was like, I got zero money in the bank yet. Please give me one. And, then it's hard to pay that loan. So you go and take another loan, and now you got those payments. And all of a sudden you realize that your, terms with your vendors are past due and they're calling you. So you take another loan and you realize, shit, now I'm in debt, right? Like how are we doing all these sales and I'm in debt? Like, how does that work? So I never thought about like, yeah, we're selling and we're all busy and my staff is burnt out at this point, right? But we're not actually making any money. Yeah, I'm surviving, but we're not actually making any money. So I had to get myself out of the business, right, out of the day-to-day operations of the business, and spend a good amount of time. I hired somebody to help me because I knew that I wasn't really the numbers guy, like I don't really know. And I broke down every piece of it and really started to understand, like, we were doing DTG and losing money on every shirt we sold. Because my white ink cost was $210 a cartridge, and we were going through 4 or 5 cartridges a week. Like, I wouldn't have known that if I didn't sit back and do the math. So now in screen printing, it's really hard to figure out exactly what every shirt costs you.
Impossible.
Yeah, because there's just so many variables, right? Like, if your press operator is not feeling the greatest that day, he's going to be loading slower than if he's hyped up on coffee, So, but that changes the amount of shirts you output, and that changes how much it costs you. So, on that side of it, I kind of realized that, listen, like, I know an average, right? Like, we know that it probably cost us 50 cents to $1. Oh, it depends how many colors, obviously, and stuff like that, but just in labor cost. Because ink cost is minimal, right?
Minimal.
Yeah, ink cost is minimal. Labor is really where...
It's all about labor.
Yeah, it's all about labor. So we've kind of figured out a semi-average. And by the way, what I did was I broke down every department, if you want to call it that, right? So screen printing was one department. Heat pressing was another department. DTF was another department. Promotional items. Everything that we did, I broke it down by departments, and I really looked at every single department. So I said, how many jobs did we screen print this month? I took like a 3-month average, and I realized that, okay, screen printing costs me, let's say, $5,000 a month, right? But it's bringing in 8 or 9. We're good, right? Like, it's as long as it's not bringing in less, right? And I did that for every department, and what I realized was that, like, DTG was a loser, so I sold the machine right away. I'm not in the business of losing money.
Good move.
Right? What I also realized that there's a lot of money potential in products that you don't have to manufacture yourself.
And it's way more predictable, isn't it?
I mean, yeah.
If you buy it for 50 cents and you sell it for $1,
Sure.
you don't have a lot of labor in it.
Sure. Until you ask for a PMS color and they send you a different one, and now they're like, we're not giving you your money back, and now it costs you money to get it redone. It's not all great, right? Like, that's the whole point of this whole talk, right? It's not all great, but at the end of the day, you start to work with people that you could trust, right? And it takes time. It takes time to build relationships, and, you know.
It is more predictable. It is not entirely predictable.
Sure. But there's a huge piece of money there that really involves, I don't want to say very little work, but minimal amount of work compared to, other things, right? Like just small upsells that you can do with your customers that you wouldn't even think of, right? That just brings in more money.
And it is a new wheelhouse. I mean, you're doing art, you're already doing the sales.
Yeah.
So it's not like entirely different business.
Yeah, 100%. We started to work with a lot of construction companies, contractors, and, it went from, who does your T-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that to, do your guys use aprons, hard hats, do you need pens? All these little things that you don't think about, right? I went to a expo in New York called New York Build. It's a construction expo. And I basically walked around, right? Because I just wanted to see what people were, like what it was all about. And I realized that there's a whole market out there of different, upsells that you can use that different businesses need.
Carpenter's pencils.
Carpenter's pencils, and that's an easy one, right? Go to ASI, go to Sage, right? Order it, make your 50% markup, 30% markup, whatever it is. You don't have to touch it. It comes in the mail in 2 weeks. Hand it to your customer. Done.
Sometimes they even give you the marketing materials, right?
Yeah.
Coded price sheets.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, most of the bigger brands for sure do, and even the smaller ones. If you need something like, hey, I have a customer, they would like to see how it looks. Maybe I'm not the art guy, or maybe I don't have a mock-up to use, like a blank product to use. You can call them and say, hey, can you guys do a virtual for me? Send them the logo, and they'll send you back the mock-up ready to go, and just get it approved.
All right, let's maybe have some questions here. How about that?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, who's got a question for Vlad here about business?
Hey, how you doing?
Just Charlie, turn it on.
Oh, it's on.
Oh.
I'm too quiet. So when you're talking about pricing, especially when you're competing with people either in the middle of the country where their prices are going to be lower than you, or you're just talking about really fast nationwide service, how do you approach customers who are trying to price match you?
So I've been fortunate enough to have built. Now, yes, if somebody calls the store randomly, right, and they're like, hi, I need a quote on T-shirts, and you tell them whatever, $8. And then they're like, oh, I got it for $7 somewhere else. Well, we're $8. That's our price. You explain to them why. Go on Google, check out our 120 5-star reviews, versus our one not good review that had nothing to do with that. Somebody came into the store, said nobody was wearing masks during COVID, left us a 1-star review. Okay. But, so you, if that person doesn't order because I'm $1 more, I'm okay with that because I know that I can build relationships, and those people aren't necessarily going to price match. Now there are, right? There are people that I have relationships with, and they call me and they're like, oh, I got it for 50 cents less. And I'm like, really, dude? Like, if that 50 cents means that much to you, I'll give you 50 cents off. No problem. Because it probably means more to you than it does to me. Now, you can't do that with every customer, but, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And our minimum wage in New Jersey is 15. There's some states where it's 7, right? Like, it's really hard for me. How can you compete with somebody where their cost of living is half of ours, their minimum wage is half of ours, and they're charging $1 less? It's hard.
Their employees are half as educated too, so you got that.
I know. Listen, they're smart people all over the country.
Anyway, it's you can't sell just on price.
No.
That's a losing battle. Yeah. Plus, if they can get it for $1 cheaper, what are they calling you for? And when they don't argue about price, sometimes you got to wonder why they're coming to you.
So when you switched over to your automatic screen printing, did you keep and do you still run your manual as well?
So when we did, yes, in our busy months, we run both. I started with a Vastex 4-color 4-station, and we started to do some live event printing. So we dabbled in that a little bit, and I would use that press because you could take it apart easily and bring it. And now I realize that there's way smaller presses out there that are way easier to transport. So we ended up selling it, and we bought like a Riley press similar to what they're using. But most of our jobs are still done on the auto.
And did you find that your cost per shirt was able to go down once you switched to the automatic?
100%. Just your output is so much higher. Right? Like they said you could print, I guess, I don't know, what was it, one color, like 400 shirts an hour or something like that. We're not getting 400 shirts an hour. Maybe my screen printer can't, like my operator can't do that, but it's still way more than you do another man. Like I remember when I hired him, we had a job come in and it was like I think at that time it was our biggest job. It was like 500 pieces, 2 colors on this 4-color, Vastex. It was rough. It was rough. But with the auto, you could do that in, 2 hours or 3 hours, yeah.
A lot of things, there's a beauty in doing things by hand, not screen printing. Screen printing, you are trying to print like a machine, and a machine does better than a person. So we never hand printed after we started auto printing. There's other ways to get your work done. Somebody works during lunch, somebody doesn't. One person does 24-piece job. You have people trained on both. See if they want to hand print. They don't. They'll figure out a way to get the work done.
Yeah, so because we have a small team, so at this point in time, screen printing is one of them, right? Embroidery, DTF, we do debossing and embossing, we do hard goods sublimation, and we do pad printing, right? And I think that's kind of been maybe a blessing and a curse at the same time, because at our shop, one day screen printing might be slow. We might only have 1 or 2 small jobs to run, but we have a ton of, DTF stuff, or we have a ton of laser engraving to do. So my team has really been capable of jumping around, right? Like if we have a few jobs, one person could, do it. If we have thousands of shirts to run that day, then we have 3 people back there, so that's kind of
makes sense.
How we do it.
Yep. Other questions?
She'll bring you the mic.
For the DTG, I think it is, what was the main reason why it didn't work for you? I think you said the cost of the ink, but at the size that you are now, do you have plans of restoring it back, especially now that they're coming out with different types of machines?
I think that DTG on a large print-on-demand scale, right, using like the Cornettes and the really big machines, I think that there'll still be a place in the world for them, but I think that DTF is really taking over. So at this point, if I had to choose between DTG or DTF, I would not be doing DTG. It just doesn't make sense. It's way slower, right? And the ink cost is way higher. Yes, you can use off-market inks, and there's ways, but then you start having problems with your machine, so is it worth it? Like DTF is just easier and way more flexible, right? You can print on way more things than you can with DTG.
I think that if you go to most of the manufacturers, DTG, they will say that it can print and look just like a t-shirt, and then they will tell you how many it prints an hour. What they don't tell you, it will not print that many an hour and look like a t-shirt, screen print. It can do it, but it's really slow and uses a lot of ink. I mean, you're talking about a lot of ink. If you're not careful, you could be spending $4 a shirt more than you thought just on the ink. it's a very tricky business. It seems simple, but it's not. I think it only works for us, for example. And tomorrow we have a talk, actually, of a guy that I know that does make it work. But it works when we get a big margin on like an online store from somebody. But otherwise, for doing just small jobs, it's pretty tough.
I agree. Yeah. The other thing you guys got to consider if you're trying to get into anything digital apparel related, right, is that you have to run these machines all the time, right? So I came here last year and purchased my second DTF machine from a company that are down there called Axiom America. And it's a Chinese imported machine, right? So I probably could have ordered a similar machine from China for 10 grand less, but is it going to be the same quality of machine? It might look like it from the outside, but you never know. Anybody who's dealt with China from a support standard knows that every question takes a day to get an answer, at least, because the time zones are completely different. So I figured for 10 grand, and I financed it, right? So it's not like I had to lay out an extra 10 grand. I figured it probably makes sense to deal with a company who is in America that I can call on the phone and that could answer me. And, at this point, I have a few techs, their personal cell phone numbers, and I can shoot them a text and say, hey, this is going on or that's going on. And they're probably like, oh, you forgot to push this button. So it's always something really dumb. But I felt like it was better for me to spend a little bit extra money, but to have that level of service, if you want to call it.
100%. I agree. We do the same thing.
Yeah, but you have to run these machines all the time. And because we run 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, knock on wood, we've never had an issue. When it comes to DTF, they don't tell you a lot, but the print heads in these machines, when you run them all the time, should last about a year, right? We're going on a year, about a year, and we've never had an issue, right? And that's because we run them nonstop. So when we had our DTG machine, like close on Friday, come back on Monday, and have to do so many cleanings, which every cleaning wastes so much ink, right? And it's like I was saying, Epson ink was $210 a cartridge, right? So you waste so much money just getting the machine to print right. And that's kind of the reason why I said it just doesn't make any sense. When I looked at the cost of what I was spending every month on material versus how much it was bringing in, I was losing money.
Other questions? That was a good question. Thanks.
Just to follow up on the DTF versus DTG, how do your customers accept a 12 by 12 DTF print on a shirt? Do they recognize that and say, this is a sticker?
So when we were doing transfers in the beginning, the reason why I got into screen printing was because a few of my customers said, hey, this is like a heat press thing, right? And I wouldn't lie to them. I said, yeah, it was. And they were like, yeah, I think we were on actual screen printing. Now, fast forward 3 years, right, since those conversations, I think that transfers have improved. The technology has improved. I mean, plastisol transfers are still plastisol transfers. They're probably not much different than they were, 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever. But digital has really, really improved. So yesterday I was wearing a sweatshirt with the same logo on it. I printed it a year ago. And it looks the same as this one, right? So the quality is there, right? So most of my customers now, if somebody wants a solid 12 by 12 design, it's going to feel like plastic. But if it's plastisol, it's 12 by 12 solid, it's going to feel like plastic too.
Not necessarily, but yes.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
You're still going to feel it.
Yeah. No, and I think there's ways to apply transfers, actually, depending on how you use the cover sheets, and more things are being developed to make it seem softer and less shiny, etc. Depends on the design. Like he said, if it's a big square, that's a tough one for anything. Thin type, people put stuff on my desk now, and I've been screen printing since dinosaurs ruled the earth, and I can't tell the difference. It's very hard to tell now. So I think the technology's come a long way. It's not the answer to everything. It's a great answer for polyester, I'll tell you that. Because screen printing polyester sucks, and it's skinny, it's slick and shiny anyway. So DTF's perfect for that stuff.
I'll give you a little shop hack. If you take a large design on a polyester shirt, which is going to be shiny, right? And you take a piece of canvas. What we did was take like a cheap canvas tote bag, cut it up, put that right on top, heat press it, take it off. Those little grooves inside the canvas will go into the print. It will give the print kind of like a textured, printed feel and it loses that gloss. So it looks way nicer.
That's a good trick.
Yeah,
Also run it down the dryer.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
one.
another one also
That's a good
does it.
one. Yeah.
They don't tell you that with the
No,
machine.
they don't tell you a lot of things, right? Like, people are always like, wow, Vlad, especially when DTF just came out, white was a big issue. White was not opaque. And when I got my first STS, they were like, wow, how is your white so white? Like, what are you doing? Well, I'm putting down a lot of ink. Now, in the beginning, that was great, but it really feels like plastic then, right? You have to really dial in your settings and figure out what works for you, because the profiles that they give you are not always, they're great. They get the job done. They're, for the majority of the world out there, they're perfect. But if you want to improve your quality, right, you can tweak certain things in your profiles to kind of make it look a little bit better, or not as thick a lot of times.
Other questions?
One more thing that I just wanted to say was, like I said, I was never a printer, right? There is not one piece of equipment in my shop that I can't get behind and run. And that's the most important thing that you can do in this business. I'm not saying that I'm standing behind my press every day, because I'm not, nor do I want to. That's a job that's, for some people, they love it. For me, my ADD kicks in, and 20 minutes in, I'm ready to throw in the towel. Just the loading of the shirts it's not for me. But if my screen printer didn't come in and a job needs to get done, it's getting done, right? Learn as much as you can learn, right? And then hire somebody. But that way you can train people. There's a lot of good reasons. And I found that there are people in this business that they rely on their staff and they don't actually know. So I learned certain things, and then I passed it on to an employee to take care of.
All right. We could go on for a while here, but I think we're done. How about a hand for Vlad?
Thank you, guys.
Printing on Main Street. Thanks. And thanks to our sponsors, Los Angeles Apparel, Emerald, Hirsch, and Styles. Check out our YouTube channel. It's all free information. Check out inkitchen.com. Thank you for coming. There's a whole list of other great talks today.